So, hello everybody. Welcome to SALT Talks. Tonight, this month we're looking at what happens, who do I ask when I get stuck? I found that many parents and gone through transition, there are so many periods, so many different points that you'd get stuck. So this whole month we're looking at areas that I know where families and parents will get stuck during that transition. Going from that school to transitioning out of school to the adulthood or whatever point. So I brought together tonight a group to talk about services. So we have the Butler County Board of DD here to talk about the services. And why I brought in, we'll have multiple people here from other DD services too. So if you're not from Butler County, that's all right. What they're going to tell you is like a baseline for many services of the County Board of DD. And you just would take it back to your county board, what you learn here today. And you can take it back to your SSA or your county board and say, hey, look, I learned this, how does this apply to us, or does it apply here? But I wanted to introduce too, I forgot to say, my name's Patty Schramm. I'm the Parent Resource Trainer Coordinator for the SALT Talks. So tonight, we're going to be looking at these services. I have a couple people from the Butler County Board of DD. We have Kim Grimes. She's going to be talking about the eligibility, because we have found sometimes parents get on, start coming to SALT, and they haven't started thinking about County Board of DD services, and they need to go through that eligibility process. So we want to make sure so how to do that or who to contact for that, and what does that look like or what does that mean. And then we have LaTalia White and Mary Hils here for representing the SSA department, and they'll each tell you a little bit about these departments so you know more about them. And then we have Beth or Elizabeth Risner. She's with the Employment Navigation Department. And then we have Brittany Bear. And Brittany, I need to make you co-host 1 second when it's your turn. We have Brittany Bear talking to us tonight about the OOD and services related to them. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to, I think, Kim, you were elected to go first since you're with eligibility and kind of the starting phase of services. I did make you co-host. If you can share your screen, or I can pull up whatever you want.
Let me see if I can pull it up. I'm not the best with technology, but I'm gonna try. Let's see. Where did it go? Okay. Actually, it might be easier for you to pull it up if you have it.
Okay. Yep. Just unshare your screen there. Yeah. And do a unshare your screen. You're still seeing.
Oh, okay.
Stop share. There you go. Okay, 1 second. You can start talking while I start pulling it up.
Okay.
1 second.
So hi, I'm Kim Grimes, one of 2 eligibility coordinators for Butler County DD. So yes, I would basically be the starting point. Referrals actually get initially made to Amy Holland. Those can be either by email or phone call. Parents, really anyone could make a referral to for someone else. Obviously, it's optional, so people don't have to apply for our services, but anyone outside can make a referral. So we get referrals from schools, counselors, social workers, neighbors, babysitters, all kind of different places. So you can go to the next slide, please. Thanks.
Let's see if it, oh yeah, here we go.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go. So like it says, eligibility, there's 4 stages of life that we do eligibility. So from birth up into age 3 is done by Help Me Grow. And that looks a little bit different. They have either therapists or developmental specialists that come out and do interventions with families in the household. Then once they turn 3, Help Me Grow services would end. And that's when the county board determines eligibility. So then the next group is ages 3 to 5. So for that eligibility, basically you would have to have at least 2 developmental delays from your ETR, or a substantial risk, which could be, lots of different diagnoses or, disability. And I think if you go to the next screen, it will go to that one. Let's see, yeah. Let's see, and then the next one. There we go, thanks. So, we basically look at ETRs and IEPs for the documentation of the 2 delays or the medical diagnosis. And then kids are eligible based off that. There is no assessment for ages 3 to 5. Then the next age group is 6 through 15. So we send out notice to parents who have 5-year-olds that are within 3 months of turning 6. We send them a notice saying your child has to go through redetermination of eligibility to continue with services. So at that time, there has to be an actual documented disability. It cannot just be delays at that point. So a diagnosis or disability. And then there's an assessment that looks at 6 levels of just daily skills. So then there would have to be at least 3 areas that show delays in order to qualify. And it's basically the same from age 16 on up. So at 16, that's the last time we do assessment, where it's actually, mandated. We can do them periodically, if the need arises, or maybe if somebody moves and comes back, or if their, skill level has changed significantly. So without the discretion of each county board of when reassessment is done, but for a lot of people, age 16 is the last one, and that's the OOD. So again, there must be at least 2, at least 3 areas that show delays or limitations, and then along with the disability. So that's really it. In a nutshell, it can go, quickly if parents provide the paperwork, in a pretty quick manner. The assessment can usually be scheduled pretty timely, and then so after the assessment and someone is found eligible, then they are referred to the INR Information Referral Department, and there are 2 ladies that work in that department, and they, contact and discuss all new referrals with families, kind of just go over everything that is offered and what the family's needs are at the current time. So they would either remain on that INR caseload, or they would go to an ongoing SSA. And then at that point, that person would be their, go-to contact person for their needs and their ISP. So it's kind of a, step-by-step process until they get to their assigned SSA.
And we have a couple county boards here represented. Every county board has an eligibility department, and the OOD assessment, and that's across the state as well, correct?
Right. Yes, we all use the COED and the OOD.
So you would, so if whoever's on this call that's from another county, you can put the contact information if you want, if you have it. I do have website links I'll be sharing too. But every county has these eligibility processes. I remember the OOD. Now that takes that OOD, that takes, is that like an hour or two?
It's about an hour, 10 minutes or so. Yeah. So it's mostly consists of just a lot of questions about, the person's daily skills. There are just a couple, on like kind of hands-on tasks that they're asked to do, count coins, do a little writing sample, tell time. But pretty much everything else is just questions. So it's not not too involved.
Very good. I know back at the beginning when I was sitting in my first sessions, like was just learning about all the DD services and stuff. And we had been in there a few months, and I remember hearing someone mention the OOD, and I looked at my husband like, "Oh, what's the OOD? We didn't do that one yet," because we were like, he was like 3 months from graduation, and we were trying to get caught up, and that was one that I just remember hearing for the first time.
Yeah.
Let me stop share here. And let's see here. If anybody has any questions for anyone during this session, you can feel free to put your email or your question there in the chat box as well, as you're thinking of them, or if there's anything that's said that you're not sure about, just feel free to ask. Okay, so let's see. Next, I guess is the SSA department.
Yep. Can you bring up one? Okay.
Sure. 1 second. Let me get my share screen here again. And
while you're doing that, I'm Mary Hils. I'm an SSA, and I'll let LaTalia tell you who she is. I work in the transition department, and that's ages 14 to 22.
Hello, everyone. I am LaTalia White. I am the supervisor for the transition team. And again, we serve individuals who are 14 to 22 who are transitioning out of high school into the adult world.
Okay. So you can skip that page and the next page because Kim talked about eligibility. So that's great. So how do families get involved? Wait a minute. Do you have a page that says how do families get involved? Oh, never mind. Okay. So once a child's found eligible, several things can happen. And the first thing Kim mentioned is a child can be placed on an information and referral caseload. And that's pretty much where the family reaches out to the SSA if they need anything. So it might be a year or two before they feel like they need a question answered, or they might need help with something. Maybe they want to utilize our family support service funds, which we'll talk about. So they would reach out to that SSA, and it's called information and referral. The second thing that can happen is if a child has more needs and the family feels like they have more needs, they can be assigned an SSA. And in this case, we do a yearly monitoring guide, and then we try to reach out to the families once a month. And so it's more active. We're trying to find out, how we can help. We're doing referrals for the family. So we're talking to the family on a much more consistent basis. The third thing is we can assist the family to utilize family support service funds, which I'll talk about in a minute. We can help educate the family on the child's disability, because sometimes, as we know, a doctor might give the disability and then the parents go home. They're really busy. They're just trying to survive. And they might not have as much knowledge about the disability or just how they can, what they can utilize, what services are out there that they can utilize. We also provide information on auxiliary services such as OT, PT, and speech. And we would probably talk to the family if they're getting those services in school. We might ask if the family's getting them, outside of school, because if you're getting those therapies in school, those goals have to relate to school goals. So that can look really different than, having OT or OT, speech, or PT outside of the school. So a lot of our families do, their children have services, therapy, both in and outside of school. And we can kind of give, we can, research different places that are close to them that would do those therapies. We can provide that information for them. We can also research summer programs and camps. We make referrals to Family First Council wraparound, which I'll talk more about. We can make referrals to mental health counseling and case management. We can research support groups. We can provide support at school meetings. We can educate the family on transition services, reach out to the community supports if the family is in need of clothing or food assistance, and we complete a referral for a waiting list assessment, which I'll talk more about. So the next slide, defining school age. School age is 3 to 13 years of age, and transition in our world, transition age is 14 to 22. So at 18, your child can graduate and take their diploma, or they can defer their diploma and they can be in school until 22. So that's why our transition ages go up to 22. Transition starts when a child turns 14. School IEPs must have transition goals on them at that time. And they usually have career exploration goals. They will have assessments to find out what the interest of the child is. And this is when a lot more team members are pretty much called to the table. So you would have your SSA, possibly, maybe OOD, occupational therapists, speech therapists, behavior therapists. The youth is, a lot of time is involved, which is good. I mean, I think that's best practice. And then the guardians. So the team is a lot bigger, and we're working hard from 14 to whenever the child leaves the school to help with that transition. Other team members, like I said, are opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities. Ohio means jobs. And then we have employment navigators, which Beth is here from the county, and she'll talk more about that. Next slide. What can we do about issues at school? SSAs can go to ETRs. Those are evaluation team reports, and they happen every 3 years. And basically the service, therapy and any other service does an evaluation, decides if the child needs that in order to be successful in school, needs that service. So if OT comes in, they're doing their evaluation, they're deciding if this child actually needs OT in order to be successful. If they do, they end up on that, the ETR says that. And then the IEP is every year, individual education plan. And for the next 3 years, the IEP goals go back to the ETR. So they work together. And let's see, an IEP, well, you guys probably know an IEP is an individual education plan, and it's just a brief summary of the child's disability and services. And like I said, it lists goals for the year and benchmarks. And then we can also provide or try to ongoing support through monitoring once a month. You can always reach out to us. We have some people that reach out almost on a weekly basis, which is wonderful, because then we really know what's going on with the family and the child. You can reach out to us anytime, send emails, call us, you can text us, and we can get back to you. Sometimes we get caught up in, other plans, and we might not reach out every month, but that is definitely what we're striving to do. Okay, next slide is Family Support Service funding. So FSS funds, you'll hear that. It's a pot of money that's available to all families throughout the year. Butler County, it changes every year. I just want you to know that. So right now, this year, Butler County families are allocated up to $1,500 for each qualifying family member. So each person in the family that has our services and has been found eligible, can access this money. So it doesn't mean that money's there just for your child. Like I said, it's a pot of money. So when the pot runs out, the money's gone until the next year. It always renews on January 1st. So last year, as you may know, our FSS funds ran out pretty fast. I think they were out by July, but that's not typical. Usually it's later in the year. But it's good to, if you know how you want to utilize them, contact us as soon as possible, even if it's January 2nd and 3rd, so that we can, you know, put in the referral, and then those funds, once you produce all the paperwork, then they're kind of put aside for you and that child. And the funds can be used with respite. You can pay somebody, a family member, a friend, anyone 18 and older that you know feel comfortable with. You can pay them. I think this year it's up to $15 an hour. You can also, and you can utilize it for camps. We have a lot of kids that utilize it for camps. You can utilize it for adaptive equipment, special items, diapers, counseling, training, therapies, music therapy, equine, occupational physical therapy, and speech. So it's a really nice source of funding that you can use.
And I just wanted, I'm sorry, Mary, I
Oh.
just wanted to add too, that every county is different in their funding that's
Yeah.
available.
Absolutely. And like I said, it changes every year. So, so anyway, the next slide is, I'm going to talk about Family Focus. So Family Focus is actually, they are inside Butler County DD, and they're a positive behavior support. They're free, and they're a short-term service that will come in and kind of help you problem solve if you have, if you're having some problems, and you need some problem solving. You know, if there's conflict, they can work on conflict resolution. They can work on self-control strategies, anger management techniques, but it's really a short-term service. And like I said, it's free. And they can do a lot of visuals too. So if you have a child with autism and, you know, you need social stories about something, you need visuals, they can do that. And they're just very knowledgeable at what they do. And it's a real good resource. And that's also, like I said, through Butler County DD. Another service that you've probably heard of that's not inside Butler County, but Ohio Rise. They're a special managed care program for youth with complex behavioral health and multi-system needs. And they are, if your child can be eligible if they have Ohio Medicaid, and if they're at between 0 and 20 years of age. And this service is for significant behavioral health treatment needs. And if you have a child that is in and out of like maybe Children's Hospital, psychiatric hospital, it'll kind of flag the system and they'll reach out to you. That's what I've seen them reach out to families, just because they're seeing that they're in the hospital a lot. So they can also be on the team, and they can, they have waivers that they can utilize, and it's intended to keep the families supported in the community and to prevent institutionalization for the child. Okay, next slide. SALT talks are wonderful. We love them, and they're just really good learning tools. So I won't talk about that because if you're on here, you probably know about it. We also can talk about stable accounts, and that's an account that you can set up for your child, and you can put money into it, and that money in that account cannot affect other benefits that your child has. So it cannot affect their Medicaid, it cannot affect their SSI, and anyone can contribute to it. So if a child, has a birthday and they have everything they need, their aunts, uncles, whoever can contribute to this account. And I think they just changed the amounts where now you can put up to $17,000 in it a year, and I want to say it's tax free, but I don't see that on here, but I'm pretty sure it is. So next slide. We can get you more information on that too. So,
oops, sorry, I just skipped.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. So, okay. So SSAs can help with a lot of things. So I'm just gonna pause. I'm gonna read this because I don't have that slide. But this is a wonderful. It's a wonderful. What's the word I want to say? Just group, I guess, of people. They're through Family First Council, and they provide parents night out, and they have virtual hangouts. They do things online. They were really creative during COVID. I think they actually, when they did their night, like parents night out, although parents couldn't go out because it was COVID, I think they delivered like pizzas to the house. It's a really nice service. But anyway, they have a lot of things. They have grown by leaps and bounds. And we can get you more information on that. They have a really nice Facebook page. And if you're on there, it seems like a really good support for families. They'll put something out and ask for people's ideas and suggestions. And they have a lot of events. So the next thing, okay. Well, I'm just going to go off my thing. So I'm going to talk about some other things we can help with. So Medicaid referral. Many times parents don't realize their children may qualify for Medicaid. So we can educate the family on Medicaid. We can encourage them to fill out the application, and we can somewhat help with it. We have an SSA. That's her main job, is to help parents fill out the Medicaid applications. And then she can also submit it so that we have a really nice kind of trail of, oh, you did get this application. You know, she can go to JFS and say, hey, I sent this on this date. Where is it at in the process? Medicaid's based on income. However, if someone does not have Medicaid, but is getting a waiver, they will approve it so that you can have a waiver. You have to have Medicaid in order to get a Medicaid waiver. And we're going to talk more about that. Wraparound is another referral we can do. And they are funded through Family First Council and the Mental Health Board. And they help children who have complex needs. The coordinator goes out and does like a family history and focuses on the family's strengths. And then they create a team with that parent or guardian. So, and the team is usually an SSA. It can also be someone at church. It can be a friend in the community. It can be a teacher. A lot of times we have teachers on the teams, and we just wrap around that family and we bring whatever knowledge we have. It's only as good as the people sitting there, because it's based on our individual knowledge, but together we work together and problem solve and wrap services around. And I've seen some really great things with wraparound. So we can do that referral, and we do that quite a bit. We also have waiting list assessments that we can do. And what that is, a waiting list assessment would identify if a family has a current or an immediate need, and that the funding that's available out there through grants and through like FSS funds isn't enough to meet that need. We can do a waiting list assessment and see if there is an immediate need, which would be in the next 30 days, or a current need, which is within the next year. We do tend to do these more like during transition, as a child's getting really close to leaving the school system. So a lot of times when the child's going to age out 22, we'll do a waiting list assessment, because they may have, more needs since they won't be in school. And then we can also do referrals to Medicaid, which is a dual diagnosis wraparound. So they specialize in mental health and DD, and they have a nurse on staff, a recovery coordinator, which is like case management, and they can go into the home like 3 times a week, and they can be open for like a year to a year and a half. And they also have a behavior therapist. So that's Medicaid. And then the children's services, we do have children on our caseload who are in foster care. So we can also help that person, the children's services worker with any, with just like anything they would need as far as if that child they serve has a disability. So a lot of times we're on those teams. And we also serve, we have children that end up in juvenile detention sometimes, unfortunately. So we can go there. We can sit with the family while they're waiting in the lobby before they go in. We can also go into the hearings and just be a support that way. So we do have people that we serve that have dual diagnosis. So they have developmental disabilities and also some mental health. And we can do referrals to mental health places. some of the most popular in Butler County, or the ones that I know of, I shouldn't say popular, but are Community First Solutions. They offer counseling for children. I think it's called Foundations, and it's in the same building as Lifespan. There's also Access Counseling, New Path, which is the former St. Joe's, and Butler Behavioral Health. And I'm sure there's many, many more. But within these services, you can also find programs that will offer more intensive support if the child needs it. And then inside Butler County DD, we have a community support division, and they do a lot of social gatherings. They're involved in Special Olympics, Best Buddies, Ken Anderson Alliance program. They're involved in Miracle and Challenger baseball leagues, and art, music, and dancing events. And they have maybe some camp information. We also have Community Resource Directory. We can help educate on guardianship resources. We can talk more about like supportive decision-making versus guardianship. We can give you information on those. And I know Salt Talks does a really good job with those kinds of things. We also, can access grants or look into grants for special needs. And Community Connections, referral and linkage. And there's plus a whole bunch more. It just really depends on the specific case and kind of what's going on with your child and your family. So we do go into about, I think it's 12 schools. So Butler County, Edgewood, Fairfield, Hamilton, Lakota, Madison, Middletown, Monroe, New Miami, Princeton, Ross, and Talawanda. I shouldn't say we go in. Those are the schools that are in Butler County. And if we're invited to meetings, we will go to those meetings. But we're not actually in the school. I know some counties like have the SSAs in the school. But that's not us. But I just wanted you to know all the different school districts that we are a part of. And so that is kind of my presentation. And if you have any questions, LaTalia can answer them. She's the supervisor.
Are any of the next slides, are these?
That's all stuff that I just went through. So,
okay.
Yeah.
It's just extra slides.
We're
okay.
Done. Yeah.
Okay. I thought, oh, wow, there's a lot more slides. Okay. These presentations will be available out there in the Google Salt Drive too. So let me just stop share here and double check our chat box just to make sure there isn't any questions coming in. Make sure I didn't miss anything here. Okay, very good. Yeah, and you had mentioned like the funding I had indicated it's different for each county. We had just had a SALT meeting on camps, and it was indicating, sometimes they can get funding or help through the county board for the camps, but each one is different. So I just wanted to make sure that parents knew that. Reach out to your county board, specifically for those kind of like for funding questions or anything specific.
I think someone had a family focus question. It says, I know it's short term, but is that per year or one time short term? Marjorie is best. Yes, she is. So is Lisa. But no, you can reach back out to them or us. You can reach out to the SSA and we can do a referral. They are more than willing to come back if you need them to, or kind of process through things. They're always there for you. So you can use it at any time. It's not just once a year or once and that's it. And then we have tried pause. They are great, but more younger children, not transition age. Well, that's true. That is very true. I'll have to find out about that. Like maybe that's in the works that they're going to do more transition age.
And you had mentioned some of those community, the community service, like Best Buddies is great. I'm trying, I don't have it up right now, but all the different things for community connections, just being out, especially for transition age individuals, getting out with Best Buddies and, you know, just a Special Olympics or any of those things, getting involved is great for interaction and support. Is there any other questions before we move on? Because we have the next, we're going to be going from transition services. Well, it's still transition services. We want to look at the complete picture of transition, because when you start getting ready for making that transition out of school, you're looking at employment or after school transitioning. So we're going to be talking with Elizabeth or Beth Risner. Yeah. Do you need me to share your information, or do you have that?
I can try. So, and you guys can call me Beth. I have to do a plug real quick for the Best Buddies Walk. That is coming up. I believe it's on Saturday, the 22nd. I'm doing it for the first time this year because I decided, you know, it's a good thing. I need to get out and exercise. So if any of you guys would be interested, I believe there's still signups available.
Very good.
Okay, guys, what do you see?
We see your form, your handout.
Oh, perfect. Okay, that's
Okay.
what I was hoping for. Okay, now our employment team, now start with every county operates employment differently. Here in Butler County, we only have 3 people on our employment team. I like to call us, we're small but mighty. So I feel like we do the work of like 6 people, but there's only 3. We have 2 employment navigators, Elizabeth Grove and Alyssa Smith, and then myself, I'm the employment services coordinators. Now, the navigators, they work directly with individuals, and they assist in the planning, coordinating, and monitoring of employment-related services. And then the primary function of my job is to build relationships with employers out in the community, and then also make sure that our employment service providers are well supported. So I meet with them monthly, and we just go over any issues that they're having, any things that I can help with. And then most importantly, I connect them with the employers that I meet at the Chamber of Commerce meetings. I attend the Fairfield, Middletown, and Hamilton Chamber of Commerce meetings on a monthly basis, just to try to get all those big employers. And as you know, with Spooky Nook, we've got a lot of new businesses coming to town that I'm really trying to make good connections with. So I'm a numbers person. I like to see, the stories are great, but I love statistics, and I love, you know, tracking the data and showing the good work that we're doing. So as you can see right here, we've got 506 people employed, and we only look at age 18 and up. So we have 1,642 people enrolled that are age 18 or over, and then 506 of those are working. And then our current employment rate, and this is pretty much hot off the press, is 30.81%. Now you'll see this fluctuate. The first quarter of every year is usually our lowest in numbers. And that's because a lot of the retail places aren't as busy in the first quarter. And then we see it kind of pick up. So I would say it ranges anywhere from like 30% all the way up to 34, 35%. We have 122 people currently actively looking for employment that are in our navigation services. The average hourly rate, when we look across all those 506 people, is $11.23 an hour. That's not bad, but I would like to see that get closer to at least the $15 range. And then the average length of employment, and I'm pretty proud of this, is 4.4 years. So that means that on average, that's how long people stay at a job. And I think the longevity is the most important. And if we look at weekly hours worked, 24.96 hours is our average for the week, which is pretty good. Our top 5 employment partners, and how I gauge this, I added up. I went through my spreadsheet and added up like who we have number wise at each employer. So Kroger was at the top, followed by Miami University, then Atrium Hospital, and Tyson Krupp Bilstein We like to just call it TKB. They build car parts, and they are a wonderful employment partner for us. We have actually a success story of a gentleman who owns his own condo, and he just recently bought a car. He's been there for 8 years. And speaking of stable accounts, he's reached that $100,000 limit for his stable. So now we're trying to look for other things. So there are some great success stories out there. Home Depot, they've been hiring like crazy. We've had a lot of guys get good paying jobs there. And then I made you a list here just so you could see, and this is just so far for this quarter. Spooky Nook has hired 4 people. We're on our 4th person there. Amazon, Firehouse Subs, Kings Island, as we mentioned at the top of the call, Dave & Buster's, Extended Stay Hotel, Lowe's, Front Gate, which is a warehouse, Buffalo Wild Wings, Provision Senior Living Services, and Johnny and Nicholas, which is a warehouse. I had never heard of that one, but they've recently just hired a person. So what services, when we're looking at services, can be offered? How it would start is the person has to have an SSA assigned, and then all the SSA has to do is submit a referral. All the referrals go to me, and then I assign them to Libby and Alyssa based on either relationship, or sometimes it just has to be upon caseload size so that we can kind of keep them even. Some of the services that we offer are career discovery. This is a great service for someone who has no clue what they want to do. So a lot, and especially with that transition age, sometimes they just don't know what's out there. They don't know what's available to them. And that focuses on going out to 3 different types of job sites and letting them do informational interviews and really get a feel for what that work environment is like. And then it turns into what we call a career discovery profile, which is a comprehensive report that kind of goes over the strengths and the weaknesses and where they might be best suitable. Benefits analysis and education. I'm kind of biased to this one. We all got a certification, all 3 of us, to do benefits analysis reports. And essentially what that means is that we look at the impact that working will have on public assistance programs, because the last thing that we want to do is impact anybody negatively and have them, lose Medicaid or lose their food assistance based upon working. And another plug that I'll do, we have a series called Fear Factor, and we're going to do a series on Medicaid buy-in for the working disabled. And that is June, LaTasha, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it's June 18th from 1 o'clock to 2:30. And I can get Patty a flyer on that. So don't worry about keeping track of dates, but I'll get Patty a flyer, and they really are beneficial. And if you can't make that, we do have a whole library of them saved on the Employment First website. So then that way you can just go and watch the ones that pertain to you. There's one on SSI, SSDI, stable accounts. There's a long one on stable accounts. So you should be able to find something in there that pertains to your situation. And job development, that service is where we're helping someone obtain a job. So typically we'll find a job developer, and they will meet with the person weekly until employment is secured. They can help them with their resume, help with interview skills, and then also determine any workplace accommodations that might be needed. So it's a really good service. And then the last one that's frequently utilized is what we call individual employment supports. This is basically job coaching. So when somebody does get a job, we want to make sure that those supports are in place. And that is what we usually partner with OOD on. We're kind of the long-term support, whereas OOD jumps in and provides that immediate assistance until the job is secure. So I didn't want to inundate you guys with every single support service that we offer. We can also help if somebody wants to become self-employed, which I think is important because I think after COVID, we've started to see a lot more people who either want to work from home or want to become self-employed. So that is another service that I will add to this that we can provide. So I know I don't have too much info here, but if you guys think of any questions, just feel free to ask, and I'm happy to help answer what I can.
There is a question out there, Beth.
Okay.
And I think it's when you're going through all the employment services, is this the same thing like going through Butler Behavior Health or Goodwill or Easter Seals for employment opportunities?
So that's a great question. We are the funding source. So the Employment Navigator does the authorization, or the SSA does the authorization, and then we partner with agencies such as Goodwill, Easter Seals to actually be the direct service provider. And that brings me to another point that I didn't put on here, transportation. We can help with transportation as well, but we like for the family to look at natural supports first, and then the county will kick in if there's a need after all those natural supports. And of course, the bus line with RTA is explored. Okay.
Great. Is there any other
questions?
Yeah, is there any more questions for Beth? Looks like you're good.
All right, I got off easy. Thank you, guys.
Go ahead and stop share.
Sure.
Yeah, very good. And if you think of questions as we go, feel free to type them in the chat box, because this is, as you're creating a transition team, it does get confusing as to who's on it and who do you invite, because this is something that you can have multiple groups, multiple agencies. I mean, it's to have a team that helps your child with this transition is very important, to have a good team that works together. So let's see here. So our next person is Brittany Bear. I'm looking for you, Brittany. She was on here.
I am right here.
Okay. Or Brittany Bear.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Oh, there you are. You're up in the corner. I was like, I'm looking all down through here. Yeah. I have you as co-host, so you can share your screen if you'd like.
All right, bear with me. I have never shared in Zoom, so I'm sure it's the same as Teams, but just bear with me. All right, can you guys see that okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so I am here just to kind of talk about some transition services. Beth really kind of gave me a really nice softball in to start talking about some of the services, because we really do partner together with Butler County DD, the SSAs, the Employment Navigators. So we are primarily based off of anything that is going to be employment related. Preparation during high school, we partner with the schools. I get invited to a lot of IEP meetings, ETR meetings, parent nights, info sessions, just to kind of explain what OOD is, kind of how we can help and just start that process. So we partner very closely with the schools to make sure that we're getting students in quickly and early, so we can start as early as age 14. Our transition services start at 14, and they would go until the age of 22. However, we have we can help anyone that has a disability, as long as they have a need for it, up until they are at any age. We have adults that are 70 that are coming back and just want to do something. So, it doesn't matter age. If there is a disability and a need there, that is who we serve as far as employment goes. So like I said, we do coordination with the schools, our DD services, and just the whole IEP team. That includes the parents. I try to really get involved with the parents and the families and anyone that is involved in the students' lives, so that we kind of have an idea of what things are going to look like as they transition from high school into adult world and adult services. And the long-term goal is kind of finding that long-term employment after graduation. And you're probably thinking, okay, you prep during high school, help transition into, some of those community services. What does that mean, right? So we have our primary services that really focus on employment. And this can be in, these are all during high school, but we also help with job development and job coaching after graduation as well. So I'll kind of go into more detail, and break out, break these down a little bit better for you. But our core services are our pre-employment transition services for any student, our summer youth work experience, job development, and on-the-job supports. Now, we also have some additional services that we can look at based on each individual's need, each student's need. These, our counselors really try to work with the families and work with the students and the team to make every plan and every service as individualized as possible. So not every single person that comes in is going to get, pre-employment transition services, summer youth, job development, job coaching, and then all of these services as well. Some people may not qualify for driver's training, and that's okay. Some people may not go to college where it's post-secondary. That's okay. We really try to focus on what is going to be best for that individual and meet those needs. So the driver's training, we can help with driver's training. I like to joke around with my families that I tend to be the Oprah of driver's training. If a family and a student expresses interest in it and they seem to have that cognitive awareness, I say, let's go for it. Let's see if you can do it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? We can help with post-secondary, which is that higher education, college level, some trainings for like an adult education. That's kind of a whole other beast that I'll kind of quickly talk about later. Rehab technology, if your student has any needs as far as if they're in a wheelchair, if they are paraplegic, quadriplegic, if they have just use of only one arm, if they are blind, visually impaired, deaf and hard of hearing. Those are some things that we do as far as rehab technology. And then same thing, and then with bridge supports, these are new. And I'll, again, talk a little bit more about those later. They're things that we've offered before, but now we can offer them a little bit more, if you will. So to break things down a little bit better for you guys, so our pre-employment transition services, I like to call these a little bit more of like our stepping stones into the world of work. So there are 5 different pre-employment transition services. There's Introduction to Self-Advocacy, which really focuses on how to advocate for yourself. It talks about leadership skills. It focuses on, okay, I want to get a job and I want to be able to communicate with my employer and communicate with my coworkers. And if I'm working in customer service, I want to be able to communicate with customers. How do I do that? It also focuses on working with an employer to disclose a disability and how you do that and what you should share and what you shouldn't, or what you're comfortable with sharing. Just so that when you go into a job, or if you're already working, the employer is understanding of kind of what your needs are. So that's what that Introduction to Self-Advocacy is making sure that you know how to communicate with a boss of what your needs are. Workplace readiness training. This is kind of that bridge into job development, if you will. This is the very basic, what's a resume? What's an application? How do we even go about looking for a job and applying for a job? They'll kind of do like outlines of, a resume, just kind of in its most basic form. They might talk about some soft skills and behaviors on the job and what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. So these are some of those basic things that some students and high school students in general may not know. So it really focuses on some of those things. Job exploration counseling is more based on what's even out there in the community. I can't tell you the number of students that I get coming in that say, I want to make money being a YouTube star. And that's wonderful. A lot of people do it. A lot of people are successful at it. But let's see what else we can do in the meantime. What's in our backyard that we can look at that's going to make us money right now, or for a little bit until you really get things going on YouTube. That's kind of how I like to phrase it to my students of, you know, that's wonderful. And you can do that as a hobby for now. And then if it gets up and running, wonderful. But what's in your backyard? Let's look. Maybe there's something that interests you. So that job exploration counseling really focuses on what is in our community that maybe would be a good fit that you're really interested in. Work-based learning, I don't know a lot of people that are doing this one right now. I think it's starting to get more up and running. Work-based learning is more going out into the community and with kind of a staff member and going out to employers and kind of almost shadowing and seeing what's out there in the community. So it's a little bit more in depth of that exploration. And then our last one is counseling on post-secondary options. So that one is if I have a student that is very interested in going to college, even if they're just kind of saying, I kind of want to go to college, I'm not really sure, we do it. I have probably 10 students on my caseload right now that have expressed interest, and about 8 of them are going to college. And so that counseling on post-secondary just focuses on, okay, what do you want to go into? What is your major going to be? Or at least want to be? What does all of that entail? How do you even go about applying to college? Do you know how to fill out the FAFSA? What happens after we fill out the FAFSA? Are there scholarship opportunities? So someone will go through with the student. And I really say the student because at that point, the student's going to be an adult. They will involve the family. However, at that point, the student is going to be an adult. I remember when I was 18 and I did not want to do all of that on my own, and my parents kind of pushed me, and I was better for it. But the staff member would really focus on working with the student one-on-one to help figure out and navigate that college world. They'll also help with things such as, okay, once you get accepted, how, or if you're already accepted, how do you go about applying for disability services? What does that look like at that specific college? So they really kind of go into some of those things that some people need help with. Our summer youth work experience. So before anyone asks, this is completely full at this point. We are busting at the seams. This is our most popular service. Our summer youth work experience is 3 to 5 weeks long. It is paid, and it ranges between 12 to 20 hours per week based on the students' needs and kind of based on what's out there in the community for the summer. We have groups of up to 4 students with a job coach. So the job coach would be there the entire time, making sure that the students are learning, what their job tasks need to be, making sure that they are doing the appropriate things and getting along with everyone, being nice to customers, that kind of thing. So the job coach is really there as that main support. And it is out in the community. So some of our most popular places are Tractor Supply, Bargain Hunt, City Barbecue. Trying to think. We have a lot. We have a lot of places that we work with out in the community that just keep wanting us to come back. And like it says on here, the purpose is really just to learn those job skills and gain that employment experience, but in a supported setting. A lot of students will get a part-time summer job and then they'll quit at the end of the summer, and that's wonderful. And they might be able to do it on their own. This is for students who maybe have never worked before, and they need a little bit more support before they're ready to go out into the community and do that summer job on their own. Job development. So job development is, we have a variety of job development. So like here, it says here, We have part-time employment during the school year, like any other student would. I work twice a week during the school year, just on the weekends. And that's what it was. So some people will do just a few hours on the weekends. They can have a job coach as well, which I'll get into. We can help with some summer employment. So if the student did the summer youth work experience the year before, and they're like, you know what, it went really well. I am ready to go get a summer job and just make some money and maybe work full time so that I have that whole summer to make extra money. Awesome. We can help with that. We can provide a job coach or a job developer to help you find that summer job so that when summer comes, you're ready, up and running. And then same thing with long-term employment after graduation. So that's the end goal. That is our marathon. The long-term employment after graduation is kind of what we focus on all throughout high school. That's our end goal. That's going to be, okay, we've done all of these things. We're going to help you find a job now. That's really what you want to do. You've explored all these different careers. You've figured out what you like, what you don't like, what you're good at and what you're not good at. So let's figure out where we're going to go with that. So we help with the employment after the student graduates as well. All jobs development services will help with developing a resume, applying and interviewing for employment, and then coordinating with the employer as well. And I mean coordinating with the employer as in they'll work with the employer to make sure that the employer understands any accommodations that the individual might need. If they, just kind of anything that they're going to need. If there is specific onboarding, the job developer can help coordinate some of that as well. So just anything that's going to make sure that the individual is able to secure that job and is ready to start. Now, I'm sure you're asking, okay, so they get the job. What's next? Are they just left on their own? No. We have on-the-job support, so that's just a fancy word for job coaching. So after an individual or a student gets a job out in the community, the job developer will kind of step back and we'll bring a job coach in. The job coach will be there maybe full-time at first, just kind of depending on the individual's needs. And then they'll slowly fade out. So what we mean by fade out is maybe 1 month they're there, half of the time or even full-time. Then the next month they're like, okay, you're doing pretty good. I'm just going to come in for 2 hours a shift, or I'll come in for 3 days a week instead of 4, or something like that. So they slowly start fading out until the student and individual would not need those services and are pretty much on their own. And how they do that is they help with learning job tasks. They help with coordinating that employment. So again, that coordination piece with the employer, and making sure that they have natural supports on the job. So when they're not there, is there someone that the student individual can lean on or go to make sure that they're doing things right? Or if they have questions, that's the purpose of a job coach, so that the individual doesn't need those supports long-term, so that they are the whole goal is to be independent and to be able to do it kind of on their own. And I know that probably sounds scary as parents. We make sure that we do it at their pace and we really individualize that service. That we don't just leave them stranded. So those are our core services. Now, some of the other services that we offer, so I said driver's training. If you or even the student is kind of wary about if they're even able to drive, we can do a driver's assessment. It would entail getting into a car just in the parking lot, seeing how they do. They wouldn't drive anywhere or anything like that, but just seeing how they would do about putting their seatbelt on, adjusting their mirrors, if they know kind of how to navigate that type of, the car and everything like that. It also, I believe, involves kind of a written portion just to see where they're at. And after that driving assessment, if the assessor says, you know what, they're good to go, let's go ahead and try it, then we go ahead and we do that. So the next step would be to do the pre-driver's education, which is helping study for the permit test. A lot of people struggle with this. So they meet once a week and they help study and just really help once they're ready to help go and take that test so that they get their temps and they're ready to start that driving on the road. Once they have their temps, we can help with on the road driver's training, just like the BMV would. It's just more supported. You know, the people that we work with understand disabilities. They understand our people. So they really try to individualize it and make sure that our individuals are supported and are learning at their own pace. So they'll go out on the road, they'll practice maneuverability, they'll do all of that stuff, just like any, you know, the BMV would, any of those driving companies would do. And then the last thing I have about driver's training is that we can do modified and non-modified driver's training. And what I might mean by that, non-modified would just be a regular car that you probably have out in your driveway, you know, just any car. But we also can assist with modified training. So if the individual needs a spinner knob, because they aren't able to use their hand or their feet, I'm sorry, to reach the pedals or anything like that. If they need a spinner knob to be able to drive, we can help with that. We can make sure that they have that modified car to practice that driving in. All right. I know this is a lot of information, so bear with me. Post-secondary. So post-secondary is, like I said, it is a beast in and of itself. But we really want to make sure that our students, if they are interested in that post-secondary, in that college higher education, and they're able to do it, let's go for it. Let's do it. So at minimum, we can help with books. We can potentially help with tuition. There is a certain amount of funds that we are able to allocate to that. I am not sure what that number is, and it is changing. So by next fall semester, it will be different than it is now, which is a good thing. It's going to be bigger. But we can help with some tuition if there is a financial need. And then college, we also have a college to careers initiative, which is also growing, which is fantastic. Right now, I believe we have 4 counselors across, no, that's wrong. I apologize. We have a lot more than that, but we have 4 just here in the Southwest that are part of our college to careers initiative. They are actually in the universities. There is one at Miami University, there's one at UC, and there is one at Wright State. There is one more, and I cannot remember where it is, so I apologize. But we have them across the state. There's one at University of Toledo as well. I believe there's one at Ohio University in Athens. So that means the purpose of that is to really make sure that anyone that we are serving that is going to those colleges, if they want services, they have a counselor that is right on campus that can help them. Making sure that they're getting those services in place, making sure that they have those disability services. That's the gist of it. It is wonderful. Bridge supports, like I said, these are a little new. We've done these before, but we have more access to them, if you will. So on top of needing any type of assistance with job coaching, job development, anything like that, if there's a need, we can help with purchasing work clothing, interview clothing. A big one that we're really excited about is we can help with ID replacements. I cannot tell you how many times I've had a student come back and said, I lost my ID. I can't get a job right now. So we can help with that. We can make sure that the student is, or the individual is able to pay for that because they may not have those funds. We can help with training, such as if someone wants to do like an IT certification or anything like that, that's going to help them advance in their job. That's something we might be able to help with as well. And then community connections is just making sure we have additional supports in place. Those are more for adults, but they can be for students. I had a student last year that unfortunately did not have anyone. No parental support, nothing. He was kind of bouncing around house to house. And so we use these community connections to make sure that he got Butler County DD set up. He, he was able to find that stable housing. He got those supports that he needed so that he could focus, so because the whole time he was just focusing on living and surviving rather than employment. So getting some of those community connections in place, we were able, he was able to ease up and just focus on that employment so that he can make a paycheck. And then the last one I'll talk about is rehab technology. So like I said, if there is a student or individual that is in a wheelchair, if they need some extra supports, or they have limited mobility, they have they're deaf or hard of hearing, have any type of visual impairment, those are things we can help with. We can help modify vehicles. So vehicles that you already have, or if they're going through the driver's training, we can assist with that as well. Home modifications. A lot of times we try to use some other supports for home mods, such as our partners at Butler County DD, but we really work as a team to figure out who's going to be able to do that. And then job site modifications. If someone gets onto a job and they just need a chair because they need to sit every 15 minutes, and the employer's like, yeah, we can absolutely do a chair, then we're able to kind of purchase that and make sure that there are any, those modifications in place so that the individual is successful on the job. So those are those reasonable accommodations. So that is a very brief but very hefty, overview of our services. My next slide is more just questions, but before I, kind of go into questions, I want to really just quickly go over our eligibility process. And I won't go into a lot of detail because I know you guys really just want to know what services are out there. Anyone that is in Butler County, their referrals come straight to me. As far as a student, adults can come to me too. I would just pass them along. We have a lot of counselors here in Butler County that are really good, and they really individualize services. So our whole team is wonderful. So no matter who you get, you're going to be in good hands. And then usually referrals either come from the school. Our schools have our referral, and then our Butler County Board of DD, we partner with New Path. They'll send us referrals. Cincinnati Children's also will send us referrals sometimes. So if you have any of those partners, or you want to talk to the school and want to make sure you get involved, absolutely talk to those contacts, and they can get in touch with me and we can kind of coordinate those services. So yeah, and this is my contact information. So primarily in Butler County, but we have counselors all over the state that do all of the same things. So I did make sure that you guys have a list of transition counselors across the state if you want to get in touch with that specific counselor in your area. So what questions do people have?
There were some out there, Brittany, as you were talking. Let me go and see. Hopefully I get to the top of, make sure I have, yeah. So someone was mentioning the youth work experience. I was told you can only do the youth work experience twice. Is that correct?
There is not a specific limit. And I will say we try to only do up to twice, just so that we have, because we have a very dense population of transition here in Butler County. So we try to make sure that there is room for individuals coming up and students coming up, and they have a chance to participate as well. That does not mean that the student can't do 3 times. I have had students do it, but it was very individualized. That was a decision I made with the family and their team. If your counselor feels that, the student is able to do, go into a job or kind of do something else, then they might recommend that. The twice isn't a hard and fast rule. It is just kind of our unofficial like cutoff, if you will. I hope that helps.
And then there was one, do you know if Costco is a good place to work?
I actually don't know. I had someone apply there maybe a month ago, but it was on his own and he ended up, it didn't pan out. So I don't know what that looked like without those services in place. So I am actually not sure. I hope so because I love Costco.
There was another one here about the driver's training. Does driver's training have an age range? 15 and a half, 16, or 18 plus?
No, I have some students that are right in that ready to get your temps 15 and a half age. I have students that are 21 that are just starting. There's no specific age range. It's kind of based on when they're ready.
And then do you cover referrals from ICFs in Butler County?
You might have to explain that. I'm sorry. Lots of acronyms.
ICFs. I know Mary or LaTalia or Beth.
So ICFs are intermittent care facilities. So it's the setup can vary from like a hospital like setting or a group home like setting, but it's paid for through Medicaid and not necessarily waiver funded services.
Okay. Yeah, so we can take referrals from anyone. So a family or a student or individual can refer themselves. So if, an ICF wanted to send us a referral, absolutely we can do that. I was more just talking about the main people that we usually get referrals from.
And then there's another one out here going back to the modification. Modification, is there a cost limit? Can you help with car modifications on the family car if an individual is using that?
So I don't know if there's necessarily a cost limit. I have actually never done a full car vehicle modification. I have a coworker that is pretty much an expert at them, but there's no specific limit that I know of. I do know as far as if it is your family car, we have specific cars that we are able to modify that's in our fee schedule. I don't know those right off the top of my head, but if you have a counselor, you can ask them kind of what those look like. They can look it up for you. But yes, we can definitely, as long as it fits within our ability to modify that vehicle, because we have a list of those vehicles. If it fits into that, then yes, we can do an existing vehicle.
And we also just shared a link to that. You're talking about that list of counselors across Ohio. We just put the link to the Google Salt Drive directly to that. So if someone's here from a different county,
Awesome.
They can look it up. There was another one. Hold on. Is there a list for respite care professional?
I do not have any list of respite care. I don't know if LaTalia, you might be able to help with that.
So respite care varies from provider to provider. So it would depend on what that looks like and the funding sources. So there is respite that could be utilized through FSS, and that's not necessarily a professional list. That could be utilized from any family member or friend. And then if you're utilizing waiver services, we would have to send out a request because that depends on the waiver type. It would depend on the respite provider. So it's not a specific list.
So they could go back to their county board then to get some of these lists as well, if you're in a different county.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Looking back here. I had made some notes. I did want to make mention for those who, we were talking about the driver's ed. I know we utilized OOD and driver's ed when our son was driving. These things are not like an overnight process. So it took a while to get, to go, well, we went through the evaluations and everything. His temps we had to renew, and then the process of just driving and just getting experience before he got ready for that test. I mean, and then even after he did his test and when he did pass it on the second time, we continued to ride with him for another 2 years. So, I mean, it was a couple-year process. So, I mean, the supports along the way are really great. It's not like it's going to happen overnight, though, just to let, the families know it does take a long time. And even with jobs, I mean, a job, it's not one time and done. I mean, you might have a job for a while and then, you might have to go back to your SSA and OOD and say, hey, maybe they should try a different job. Maybe something wasn't working for them, or maybe they're ready to move on. Let's see. I think Elizabeth said there is also a 10-week wait list for in a car.
That ebbs and flows just based on staffing and how many referrals are there too. So sometimes it's pretty quick, and yeah, there are times where it is 10 weeks to 3 months, unfortunately, but yeah.
And I think, Brittany, you can probably, OOD is across the state. So like if you're looking at the use, say if you're looking at one of the summer youth programs, that could vary. I mean, you might be full, but if someone's from Montgomery County, they need to kind of check their area, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, Butler County, we just fill up super quick. But yeah, if you're from Montgomery County or kind of surrounding counties in the state, yeah, check with your counselor and see what's available.
So everything Brittany talked about with their OOD, so their state level. And so anything she talked about, you can go to the local, like we have that list, we put the link in there. If you want to reach out to OOD in your area, and then the county boards, you have a county board in every of the counties. So the basis of some of the supports and services that were with the county board, you can check with your local county board to see, what they have in reference to what we talked about tonight. Does anybody have any questions or any other questions for the speakers? I have a couple county boards on here, so if there's any other questions, maybe regarding a different county, you can also ask that. We may have some of them already on here to represent them. I'm just looking back through just to make sure we got all the questions. I think we hit all the ones that were in the chat. Does anybody have any other questions? Okay, well, I'm going to stop the recording. So in case somebody wants to open up, their mic, they can. If they don't want to be recorded in the sense of speaking, I will do that. And just real quick, we are in the month. With this month, we are in I Am Stuck. So if you have a question like about something you're hitting, like a concern or anything with your son or daughter, like certain things are happening in their life and maybe it's really causing a concern or issue, go to your SSA, ask your SSA, or go to your county board, go through eligibility to get services, or see if you are eligible for services, and then they'll assign you an SSA. Or go to OOD as well, with Brittany there, depending on what the concern is, and then see what they say, if there's a service there that can help with that concern. Always ask. It's better to ask than to not ask. I found that, and it's just, even if it's simple as, steps, at home, son or daughter trips and falls going up or down steps, maybe just ask the SSA, hey, maybe is there something here that we need to be aware of or should be concerned with? Just ask that question and let them take it from there. It's very, very helpful for our daily lives with our children and with disabilities, just to keep them just to keep them, you know, whether it be safe or secure, but just to keep them motivated, you know, depending on what the issue is. So 1 second while I close the recording, 1 second. And I want to thank everybody for coming tonight while I close this, but thank you all for coming.